I've had a few days now, a couple of days actually, to think about what's going on at United right now. 15th in the table, so much anger towards INEOS, rightly, towards the Glazers, towards Ruben Amorim, the players this, the players don't like his tactics, Varane's interview coming out, the financials, there is so much stuff. What I want to do in this video is just give you my honest opinion about Amorim, where I'm at with him so far, problems, concerns, and also about INEOS, a year into their ownership. Well, part ownership of Manchester United. It's kind of a different video to usual. You can let me know what you think about both of them in the comments, all right? I'm going to start with our manager, right? Ruben Amorim. We're 15th in the league. Let's not gloss over how crap we've been. There have been moments with Ruben Amorim. There have been games with Ruben Amorim. But the progress isn't there. Now, the big question is this, which people keep asking. Should Ruben Amorim change his system, adapt his system to the players in order to, help, even if it's only a short-term thing until the summer where he can get the players that he wants in the summer and then he can use his three-at-the-back system? But I can't disagree with that anymore. I really, really cannot. And you might say, that's crazy, Sam. There's been no progress on the pitch whatsoever. It's clear his ideas aren't going to work. And I've said this before, and I will say this right to the end. If Ruben Amorim was to get sacked further down the line because it really doesn't work out, I do not want him to adapt his system to these players, to this club, to this squad. He was brought in to change Manchester United, not to then adapt to the environment which is poisonous and needs to be changed. The thing I keep saying is that system, 3 at the back, 5 at the back, it does just adapt and change when you just simply play more attacking wing-backs. I think Ruben's got to take more risks himself inside the same system. And I think that's where he can do some adapting. Diogo Dalot, for example, is a big sticking point. But does he have the individual quality in the wide centre-back position to be able to play the way he wants? Questionable. But off the pitch, I've been nothing but impressed with Ruben Amorim, how he carries himself, how he presents himself, how honest he is. And for me, that's something that's has gained him a lot of favour with United fans. But we saw with this coming out this week about the players, some of them want him to change his system. So it's the same sort of story that you've read with every single manager we've had. And also, you want to go back to the system that was different under Erik ten Hag, that was 4 at the back, and then the exact same play. Oh, sod that, man. I've had enough of this football club adapting, and I've had enough of a fan base that says they want to have a rebuild, and as soon as you start rebuilding and there's a draft coming in, I know, bear in mind the draft is huge right now. We're 15th in the goddamn league. But as soon as you get halfway, even a third through the rebuild, it's like, if you're going to do a proper haircut change, you're going to go through a stage of shit hair. But if you really want that change, you'll stick to it. I don't know why I like my analogy so much, but that's kind of... any calls for Ruben Amorim to change his tactics, you're being lazy and you want that short-term dopamine hit. That's the way I see it. However, I do think that Ruben Amorim himself can adapt his own system. Not saying change the position, not saying change anything about 3 at the back or anything like that, but maybe in terms of the personnel. Either way, there has to be an upturn from somewhere, but I don't think it should be him changing. And with INEOS, right? We're a year in now, okay? And because of everything that's happened in these last few months, people will forget about the stuff that happened at the start. And they built goodwill up. They actually implemented a structure there. They had communication at the start, which now seems like a false dawn. But overall, on the first year, I'm worried, man. And but I keep getting weird people up in my mentions, up in my DMs about, Sam's on the INEOS payroll, this and that. And then people trying to label them as like in the same category as the Glazers. And I would say this again and again, and I will continue to get pissed off at anybody who does that. The latest financials have just been released, right? The biggest mistakes that INEOS have made so far were hiring Dan Ashworth and not sacking Erik ten Hag. And those two things are linked, because when Dan Ashworth came in, he wanted Erik ten Hag to be kept on for that season, obviously this season now, and he wasn't. He signed a new contract, and so I think overall we spent. It came out in the financials, £14 million on sacking Erik ten Hag and on Dan Ashworth and the compensation that was around there. Those two things are massive cock-ups from INEOS in their first year that have cost United a lot of millions and have set United back a long way to the point where Ruben Amorim's had to come in mid-season. That's on INEOS, and that is ridiculous. And they deserve a lot of scrutiny. No, not even scrutiny. It's just set us back. Their decisions there. And look, I also wanted Ten Hag to be given that new contract, so I got it completely wrong. And it kind of got something that came out today, which I definitely feel like I could explore in a full video. It was that interview with Rafa Varane. And one bit stood out for me, and I've actually praised Jason Wilcox so far because it's felt like he's been... I haven't really heard anything bad about him in terms of who he's been working with, where he's been working inside United. It feels like he's been doing a good job. But Rafa Varane coming out and saying that he was confused as to why that contract was given to Ten Hag because Ten Hag had sort of lost communication with the squad. They were completely disconnected. I thought that was what Jason Wilcox was looking at. He was on the ground to understand what are the relationships like between the players and the manager. Is it right to keep him on, or are we just going to get swept up in the fact that we've won the FA Cup, which obviously we did? But that's all on INEOS, right? The financials I'm absolutely terrified about. Over £1 billion now has left our football club, servicing the debt that the Glazers burdened our club with. And that debt itself stands at 700 million. Now, bear in mind that I think the initial loan was for 550 million. Might be wrong on that one, so don't quote me completely on that. But our debt now is higher than it was when they bought the club. And over £1 billion has left the club on interest repayments, servicing it. To call them scum is like the understatement of the century. And this is something that Ratcliffe and INEOS knew they were going to deal with. You know what I think? I see INEOS are trying to pull out of their Spurs sponsorship now early. They're going to get into like a legal scrap with the All Blacks for pulling out of that early. They're not sponsoring the America's Cup team with Ben Ainsley anymore. I think they might be launching their own one separately. Conversations maybe about pulling out of Mercedes. It feels like INEOS are reining in a lot of their sporting portfolio because all the energy is going to go towards United. So it wouldn't surprise me if we hear something about Nice at some point as well. I'm terrified about the finances of our club. Have been for a long time. I'm pissed off how much INEOS have ballsed up the big decisions in their first year. Ten Hag and Ashworth. Those two decisions themselves cost us a ton of money, which now we're having repercussions on. Redundancies and good people losing their jobs when maybe they didn't need to if that didn't happen. And that's the repercussion of it. So not all the financial problems at this football club now are the fault of the Glazers. Some of them are the fault directly of INEOS and their decision-making. Is this first year learning curve, a first year learning curve? I was hoping that wasn't going to happen because they've made their mistakes at Nice. Would I prefer a full sale? Yep. I wanted a full sale at the start. I want a full sale now. I don't want the Glazers involved in any way, shape or form. I don't know when that's going to come. I don't know how it's going to come. I know exactly how it's going to come. INEOS and Ratcliffe slowly, progressively increasing their ownership, probably through extra equity, probably through extra cash investments. I imagine that's how it happens. I don't know how long it takes, but INEOS have ballsed up a lot of what they've done in the first year. I don't think I can call their first year good at all now because of that Ten Hag and Ashworth decision. Anything good that they have done, it's kind of been offset by a lot of stuff they got wrong. However, and I will continue to say this, what they are doing and what they have been doing since day one is cleaning up the shit that they inherited. None of this is geared towards Ratcliffe or Brailsford, who I really don't want to be as involved in United as he is, none of it is geared towards INEOS putting money in their back pocket. Boom, right now. In the long term, of course, it is. It's a long-term investment. But none of this is geared towards getting them some dividends, which they've banned. None of this is geared towards them making a little bit more money. It's geared towards making Manchester United Football Club a sustainable business that isn't losing money every single bloody year. And I tell you what, like, it feels like us winning the Europa League this season is going to have such an impact on our finances that it will affect the next couple of seasons majorly. My overall opinion, anybody who's even suggesting that Amorim should get the sack, but I'd put your head in the bin, man. Seriously, put your head in the bin. You say you want to rebuild, you don't really. You just want your quick, short-term fix. You want your high so you can go and win that argument in the pub. That's it. That's all that really matters to you. But for Amorim, he's going to have to find ways, without throwing any of his principles out the window, to get something more from this team right now. And for INEOS, it's that elephant in the room of the debt. The communication that we were promised as fans right at the start, they've not upheld. That for me is the worst thing that they've. Is that the worst thing? No, it's not a competition as to what's the worst thing. That's the thing I'm most disappointed about, I suppose. The communication that they promised and they showed at the start, they've really backed out of. And then, of course, everything to do with the ticket prices, everything to do with the fans and the match day experience is a bit of an inkling of what's to come with the conversations. You know, and the mad thing about all of this, and I'll finish on this, all this conversation about how bad our finances are is coming at the exact same time that we're having conversations about building a £1 to £2 billion stadium. That doesn't match up. And how on earth does a club with £700 million debt, does a club with £1 billion worth of interest that has left the club to repay the Glazers' debt, how does that club pay for a new stadium? More debt is how.